Let's talk about it. Carmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf. The divide that this case has caused is unlike anything I've seen in a while, but we're going to talk about everything on both sides, what you've heard versus what we know now. This all takes place in April of last year, as a lot of us already know, and at that time, both Austin and Carmelo were 17-year-old high school juniors. Austin was a student and athlete at Memorial High School in Frisco, Texas, with a 3.97 GPA. He worked part-time at his dad's pizza shop, he was on the varsity track team, and he was a standout MVP linebacker on the football team, playing alongside his twin brother, Hunter Metcalf. Carmelo Anthony was a junior at Centennial High School, also in Frisco, Texas. He was voted captain of both of his school's varsity track and football teams. He held down 2 part-time jobs and maintained a 3.7 GPA. What we know is that on April 2nd, 2025, there was a regional track meet. Starts pouring down rain, so kids start running everywhere looking for shelter. Carmelo ran under the tent for Austin's high school. And I've seen every single bit after that point debated, so we'll go with what's been most widely reported. At some point, Hunter approaches Carmelo and tells him to leave their tent. Carmelo refuses to leave, so Austin steps in to back Hunter up. The argument escalates. Witnesses testify that they told him to leave 15 times within 2 minutes. Carmelo's defense argued that this classifies as a verbal ambush, and with Austin being about 50 to 60 pounds bigger than him, Carmelo felt cornered and intimidated. But another witness testified that Carmelo was calling them names and yelling that they weren't going to do anything about him being in the tent. The prosecution used this to prove that Carmelo wasn't actually intimidated at all. As the argument continues, Carmelo tells Austin, "Touch me and see what happens," as he's reaching into his bag. There's a clip of Hunter retelling what happened, and according to the sequence that he gives, he says, quote, Austin grabbed his backpack before he mentions that Carmelo reached into his. Now, I'm not sure if he's talking about Austin grabbing his own backpack or if he grabbed Carmelo's backpack, but that's what he said. Another witness testifies that as Austin steps forward to remove Carmelo from the tent, Austin says to him, "I'm not going to fight you," and then shoves Carmelo out of the tent. In that second, Carmelo pulls out a 3.5-inch multi-tool knife out of his backpack and plunges it into Austin's chest. Carmelo then ran to the other side of the track, where school officers would find and apprehend him. According to those officers, Carmelo was hysterically crying when he said, "I did it. He put his hands on me. I told him not to. I was protecting myself." He then asks officers if Austin is going to be okay and if his actions count as self-defense. Within minutes of arriving at the hospital, Austin Metcalf passes away, and on June 9th, 2026, Carmelo Anthony was found guilty of murder. Now, between April 2025 and May of this year, a lot happened. Carmelo was initially held on a $1 million bond, but a judge reduced it to $250,000, citing his academic background and lack of a prior record. The family posted bail, which allowed him to await trial at home, an outcome that sparked massive outrage from Metcalf supporters. At one point, it appeared that the Frisco Police Department released Austin's autopsy, revealing alcohol and substances in his system, and that there was evidence of a brutal fight prior to the stabbing, none of which was true. The FBI actually stepped in to track down the account that released this misinformation for criminal police impersonation. And then there was the crowdfunding. Austin's family set up a campaign for his memorial service, and they raised $250,000 via GoFundMe. Carmelo's family raised over $630,000 from supporters who believe that he acted in self-defense. It's been alleged that Carmelo's family actually didn't use the money for his defense and instead bought a $900,000 house and a luxury car. But Snopes actually investigated those claims and confirmed that the funds are actually still frozen in the account and untouched. In fact, GiveSendGo, which is the platform that they used to raise the money, shut the entire campaign down just one day after Carmelo was found guilty. Their policy states that while they allow criminal defense funding for the accused, they strictly prohibit campaigns that financially support individuals convicted of violent crimes. Any remaining funds or donations sent after the verdict are expected to be refunded. Now let's get to the racism accusations. During the time before the trial, some white supremacist groups went to Frisco, Texas to hold Protect White Americans rallies, explicitly calling for Carmelo to be lynched. There would be a strict gag order silencing both families on the case, but before that, Austin's father, Jeff Metcalf, publicly spoke out, completely denouncing and disavowing the KKK and white supremacist groups, stating that they are using his son's tragic death to push a hateful agenda, and the family completely rejects it. But after the trial, there was this.
Oh, There was no black jurors. You know why? Because you can't be unbiased, you dumb If you answer the question, I can't send a black man to jail because he's black, you're not getting on the jury. You're so unintelligent, you can't even fill out a form correctly. You don't even know who your daddy is because 78% of you don't have your father in the home anymore. You got baby mamas running around with 8 kids so they can get EBT cards to feed you all. You think I'm being racist? No, I'm being real. Because they ain't only black people. White people do the same. Let me make one up. Y'all can let me make something racist up so y'all can go viral. I got a new name for Mello, okay? Because he was such this little boy y'all were trying to portray. How about watermelon felon? How's that one strike you?
The trial took place between June 1st and June 9th, and out of more than 500 potential jurors called to the courthouse, only 12 jurors and 6 alternates were chosen. Because the case had flooded the local news, it took 3 days of intense questioning to weed out people who had already made up their minds. In the final round of cuts, prosecutors used their veto power to remove the last 3 black candidates in the pool, meaning that there would be no black jury members. The defense team immediately filed an official protest, claiming the state was deliberately rigging an all-white jury against a black teenager. The final 3 candidates who were rejected were all teachers who worked with school-age students, and the prosecution argued that they might carry a sympathetic bias towards a young student defendant. The judge agreed and allowed the strikes to stand. During the trial, the state argued that Kamelo provoked the argument and that a single push from an unarmed student who verbally stated that he didn't want to fight does not justify deadly force. The defense leaned entirely into the size difference between the boys and argued that the push created a split-second justifiable fear for his life. On June 9th, after an 8-day trial, the jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. They completely rejected the self-defense argument, returning a unanimous guilty verdict for murder. In Texas, there's something called a sudden passion clause that can be used during sentencing for murder trials. It basically means that if the defense can prove that the defendant was pushed into an uncontrollable state of fear or panic directly caused by the victim, the maximum punishment drops from life in prison down to a 20-year cap. Kamelo's defense immediately tried to invoke this, but the jury rejected it, and Kamelo Anthony was sentenced to 35 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 17 and a half of those years are served. His team filed an appeal 24 hours later. Following the sentencing, massive confrontations exploded on the courthouse steps between supporters on either side, resulting in the sheriff's department making multiple arrests on the scene. I know you have thoughts on this one, so let's chat in the comments. Follow for more. I'm Angel, and this is Red Flag Files.